storied and complicated lives, sometimes strange otherworldly forces make their presence known. For the most part, these events go unnoticed, except by paranormal investigators and psychics. Those of us with open minds who see the unseen, the unknown, and the unexplained. And we continue to search for the answers to these mysteries, be that a gift or be it a curse. And now, from the tail end of the beautiful and mystical Appalachian Mountain chain, in the heart of the South, this is Alabama Adventures. Okay, hello, and glad you joined me tonight on this Alabama adventure. Let me get my computer set over here to where I need it to go, and I may have to get my magnifying glass out to read, but anyway, we'll do that too in just a minute if I have to. We're going to let Bigfoot take the night off. He might need to go down to the local bar and kind of relax, have him a few drinks, and maybe do a little dancing or whatever he does. What we're going to talk about tonight is ghosts and dogs. We're going to talk about a ghost dog. Now, if you remember a while back, I told you I hadn't received any Bigfoot reports from down in Marengo County. And I did a segment on one of the videos about a Bigfoot sighting in that county. And since then, since that has been on YouTube, I've had some other people from down that way to contact me with some other stories. Not only Bigfoot, but some other paranormal stories. Some very good stories that I want to get on here as soon as I can. This particular story I want to tell you about tonight was about a ghost dog. This story started in Wilcox County, and then it wound up in Marengo. Let me, before we get started, as I always do, let me get a little sidetracked here. Well, this is really not being sidetracked, just a little something I wanted to add. Over my lifetime, I have had ministers and other leaders in the church to not just one church, but several churches, to tell me that animals did not have spirits or souls, or they did not go on to the place we go in the afterlife. And I believe that they do. So I'm going to try to straighten out the ministers and the other people in church that don't believe animals have souls. One thing that I back that up is they do have spirit or soul, or they do move on to the other world whenever they pass on, is this particular scripture from the Bible. And I certainly don't mean to try to push a religion on you or anybody else, but a lot of times when anybody's talking about something, they'll say, well, is there any reference in the Bible to what you're talking about? And I had that to happen just a few days ago on an interview that I was doing about Bigfoot. A man that was conducting the interview asked me, he said, is there anything in the Bible that you know of that could back up Bigfoot? Well, I know of three particular stories or events or whatever you want to call it in the Bible that could very possibly be referenced to Bigfoot. But anyway, as I said, we're going to let Bigfoot rest tonight and let him take the night off. But what I want to bring out first is I believe it is Mark 16:15 or Mark 15:16. Anyway, I'm going to pull that up and read it the best I can for you. This is from the King James Version. And he said unto them, go ye into all the world and preach the gospel to every creature. Now, Jesus was talking at this particular spot in the Bible, and if every creature has a soul, then I guess that's what he was talking about. That's why you need to preach to them. If a creature didn't have a soul, what would be the sense in wasting your time preaching to it and talking to it when you could be talking to a human? We know humans have spirits and souls and that type of stuff. But anyway, I'm going to get on to this dog story in just a minute. I, myself, personally, have encountered, that I can think of right off the top of my head, two ghost dogs in my life. And one of those dogs was my dog that had got hit by a car several weeks earlier whenever I saw him. And of course, he was dead. He was buried on property that where my parents' old place was. But anyway, his name was Bozo. He was a German Shepherd, and whenever my father brought him home, he kind of looked like a possum. His hair just stood out straight off of his body, and that's what my dad said. He said his hair looks like Bozo the Clown. So anyway, that's what we wound up calling him, was Bozo. But he was a very good yard dog for many years, and he was a very good friend of mine. And I do believe that he came back one afternoon as I was traveling down a road about, I would say, about 30 miles from where he was buried. And I believe that that dog actually saved my life that afternoon. But we'll get to that in another story. I want to tell you about this little dog that this person told me about a couple of weeks ago. And story starts in Wilcox County and ended in Marengo. Now, what happened? This particular man had a small farm in Marengo County, and of course, he had a vehicle, a truck of some type that he used to go back and forth to town and wherever he needed to go. But he had sort of been wanting an older truck, one that he didn't mind putting in the woods, like to hunt with, or to go out and cut firewood, or just haul stuff off, haul trash off, or whatever he needed to do. So he ran up on this truck sitting in this other man's yard one day in Wilcox County. So he stopped and looked at the truck, and the truck didn't have a motor. I don't believe it had a transmission in it. But anyway, he looked at it, and the man gave him a real good price on it. I think he pretty much told him if he just hauled the truck off to get it out of his yard, he could pretty much have the truck. But anyway, that was what he did. He told him he would check around at some junkyards and see if he could find a engine and transmission to go in this truck, and that he would like to buy it. It was nothing special. It was. He said the truck was in very good condition on the inside as far as the interior of the cab. He said the body was a little bit rough, but he didn't mind because that's what he was wanting. Just wanting an old work truck is what we call it here in Alabama. When you have a truck, that's just what you use it for, hunting and working around the farm and that type of stuff. So anyway, he located a motor and a transmission that would fit into this truck, and he traded for it some which way. Or that's what he said. Said he had something that the man that had the motor and transmission wanted, so he just traded for the motor and transmission, and then he went and purchased this truck for almost nothing from the guy to just mainly, as I said, get it out of his yard. So he goes and gets his trailer. He goes back down there, and they load the truck up, and the guy, tells him, that he drove the truck for several years and it was a good truck, but the engine in it actually blew up in the truck just a little bit before he parked it and everything, and that he had sold the old block and the old transmission out of the truck. But anyway, just to give you a little bit of background so you know what kind of condition the truck was in. So this man, he loads it on his truck and he brings it back home to Marengo County, and he just sets it over in like the corner of his yard next to his barn, so as he gets his motor and transmission and whatever else he needs, that he can work on the truck right there at home. And that's what he begins to do. He begins doing first one thing and another on it, and wash the old truck and everything. And then one day he came out of the house, and he noticed that on the front end of the truck, on the driver's side, next to the driver's side tire, was this little Beagle dog. And he just looked at the little dog there for a second or two, and then he turned back to the house to close the door as he was going to walk out there. He had some work he was going to do. He might have been going to work on the truck that day. I don't remember exactly what he said. But he said whenever he turned back around, this little Beagle dog was gone. And he said he looked across the pasture and around the barn and everything, and he didn't see the little dog anywhere, but said it was a Beagle was what it was. That he recognized what type of dog it was. Anyway, he goes on and does what he has to do that day, work with his tractor out in the barn a time or two, and whatever he had to do that day, he went on and did it. And when he said whenever he came back in that night, he had to run to town for something, and he came back in late that afternoon, said it was almost dark, and said he hadn't paid any attention to the truck or anything as he was walking up the driveway to go into his house, and said he just glanced back down toward the truck, and this little Beagle dog was sitting next to the tire again, the tire on the driver's side. So anyway, he said he just sort of whistled at the little dog or spoke to it and said it didn't move. Said it just sort of watched him as he walked up the driveway and on in the porch, and said as he opened the door, he kind of glanced back around to check on the little dog and see if it was still sitting there. He thought about maybe going in the house and getting it some dog food or something. Said he had dogs of his own, and he was just going to feed the little dog something. And when he looked around again, the dog was gone again. And he said once again it was beginning to get a little bit dark, and he just glanced real quick out in the yard. He didn't see the dog. He didn't know what it might have ran up under the truck or ran inside the barn or whatever. But anyway, this went on for like several months. Sometimes he would come out, or he would be out in the yard, maybe cutting grass or whatever. Sometimes he would see the little dog sitting at this same position, and then sometimes he wouldn't see the little dog. Okay, now tonight we have a new sponsor, and I would appreciate you listening to this word about them. For all your hunting, sports shooting, and hunting needs, you'll find everything and more you could possibly need at Holmes Guns in Wadley. Come in and let our expert and very knowledgeable staff answer any questions you may have in planning your next trophy hunt. Maybe you just enjoy a day on the firing range. If so, let them assist you in acquiring the right gun that's right for you. Holmes Guns carry a wide variety of guns from the world's finest gun makers. They have all calibers of handguns and rifles, and all gauges of shotguns. Check out their scope department for scopes of all powers. They have all the ammunition you could shoot, even the hard-to-find calibers. Gun cleaning supplies too. A new shipment of long gun cases has just arrived. You'll find a giant selection of new guns, but they also have used guns as well, and all of the used guns have been inspected and have passed their rigid 10-point approval testing. They buy, sell, and trade guns. Come in and browse the showroom anytime. Conversation and advice is always free. Holmes Guns is located on Highway 22 just east of the Wadley Bridge. Give them a call Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. and be sure to tell them that Sasquatch Jim sent you. Holmes Guns, 256-395-4500. Let us save you some money on your next gun purchase. Holmes Guns is worth the drive from anywhere. And I would like to thank them very much for coming on board and assisting us as much as they have. Now, I want you to keep in mind that this truck had no transmission, no motor in it. It didn't have a battery. I think all the wiring was still in the truck, and he said the old truck body was in pretty good shape. Said all the tail lights and headlights were in it and everything. But just keep in mind now that there was no electrical supply running to this truck. Okay, now seeing this little dog went on for a little while. Sometimes he would see the dog when he went outside, and sometimes he wouldn't. But said the little dog never, he never saw the little dog walking or out in the yard anywhere. Every time he saw the little dog, it would be sitting next to the tire, like I said, on the driver's side. Anyway, as I said, this went on for several weeks. He and his wife and some other friends were sitting on the porch. This was like on a Saturday evening, one Saturday afternoon. They had some friends over, and they were like cooking out and that type of stuff. And one of them noticed that the headlights on the truck down there was on. And they mentioned it to him, said, you need to go down there and turn the headlights off on that truck. You must have been working on it this morning because the headlights are on. You know, you'll be running the battery down. And he looked at him kind of funny, and he said, I hadn't been working on the truck today. He said, there's not even a battery in the truck. And said, just as he glanced around, the headlights went out. But he said whenever this happened, the little dog was sitting next to the tire once again. And said he walked down there, but said the little dog kind of walked up under the truck as he headed that way. But this was very strange that there was no motor, no battery, no nothing in the truck, but the headlights came on. Well, the headlights began coming on, off and on this truck. Sometimes in the middle of the night, the particular direction that the truck was pointed toward the bedroom window in his house where he and his wife slept. And sometimes they would like wake up in the middle of the night with these headlights shining on the side of the wall coming through the window. and it was from the truck that did not have a battery in it. There was no way that the lights could come on in this truck. Well, this went on for some time, and every time, whenever it got to where whenever the lights would come on and they would could see down there to where they could see the truck well enough, like in the daytime or maybe right before dark or right before daylight, sometimes in the morning, lights would come on this truck, and the little dog was always sitting by the tire. But that was only one time that the little dog ever moved, was whenever he actually went toward the little dog. Over a period of time, I was trying to remember exactly what he said. I have not written this down in my files yet. But anyway, over a period of time, not only did the lights begin to come on in the truck, the horn would blow sometimes. Sometimes the lights would be on, the horn would blow. Sometimes the horn would just blow by itself. But anyway, he began to get a little uneasy, and he began to feel like that this truck was haunted. He didn't know if it was some kind of spirit that was connected to this truck or what it was. But he decided to go back over there to where he bought this truck and talk to the man about it and see what he had to say. So that's what he did one day. The lights and the horn had blown this particular morning, not only once, but he said more than one time on this particular morning. And he said he just got in his other truck and went back over to the guy's house where he bought this truck, and said he got out and talked to him a few minutes and said, he said, I just want to ask you something. Said, did you ever have anything odd or strange happen with that truck whenever you owned it? And he said the guy looked real funny, and kind of a funny look came across his face whenever he asked him that question. And he said he really didn't want to talk about it. He could tell that this guy didn't want to talk about it, but he said he just kept talking to him and asking him questions that there was something wrong with that truck, that he knew the guy probably didn't want it back, but he said he was fixing to sell it to the junkyard to just get it out of his yard, that there was just some things going on with this truck that he couldn't explain, and he wanted to know if this guy had ever had any problems with this truck. And he said finally the guy told him what had happened with the truck. He said just shortly, just like a few days before the motor blew up in this truck, when this other man owned it, he said he was coming down the road back to his house, and he said just out of nowhere this little Beagle dog ran out in the road, and said of course he hit his brakes and tried to swerve to miss the dog, but he said he ran over the dog with the front tire on the driver's side, and that's where the little dog always showed up whenever it came back. And he said this other man, the man that he bought the truck from, then really didn't ever go into a lot of detail, but he told him that after that he began to have a lot of trouble with the truck, like the motor did blow up in it, and he just parked the truck. And then he went on and told the man after this happened, after he hit this dog, that sometimes he didn't know if it was just him seeing it or if the dog was actually there, because he hated running over the dog so bad. But he said sometimes he could see the little dog sitting by the tire that had ran over it and killed it. And then the man that had bought the truck and carried it to Marengo County said, well, he said, there's some other things that kind of go on with the truck too that I was just wondering about. And he said after he talked to the man a while, that the guy told him the same thing happened to him. Sometimes the horn would blow, sometimes the lights would come on all hours of the day, all hours of the night. And every time that it blew or the lights came on, and he would go out of the house or come out of his barn or wherever he was at and look down that way, when the lights were on, if the horn was blowing, the little dog was sitting by the tire. So that makes me believe that indeed animals do go on to the other world, and they can come back. For whatever the reason, this little dog, I guess, decided to haunt this truck, since this truck ran over and killed him. But the man told the other guy that bought the truck that he did all he could to miss the little dog, and which I'm certainly did, because I have done the same thing. I mean, I've been going down the road and you swerve out of the road and almost have a wreck to keep from hitting the dog. But for some reason, this little dog came back and haunted that truck. But that was a dog ghost story that was related to me, like I said, from Marengo County just a few weeks ago, and I thought that you might enjoy hearing that about a ghost dog. And I do, as I said, I do believe that animals have spirit. Animals do have a soul, and I do believe that they pass on into the afterlife as we do. Uh, I know I've said it about some other things, but heaven couldn't hardly be heaven if you hadn't got your favorite dog there. And I certainly do look for a Chico to be there with me whenever I pass on. One other thing I would like to add, also there was a lady that lived here in my hometown, uh, and all her family either died out or lived way off, and she had a little poodle dog. Well, Chico was half poodle and half Chihuahua, so anyway, I kind of know what she was talking about. She lived by herself with this little dog for years, and whenever she died, uh, well, I think the little dog died first, but she had a cemetery plot in a country cemetery around here, and she wanted the little dog buried by her whenever she died. And everybody in the church was fine except for one member, and he threw a fit. No, you couldn't bury a dog in a cemetery. And what I would like to ask somebody like that is, if you do believe in God and you do believe in an afterlife like that, didn't he make all of us? Didn't he make dogs? Didn't he make humans? Didn't he make trees? So aren't we? If that's your belief, aren't we all some type of cousin? That's the way that I look at it. I can remember my father and my mother both had Indian ancestry, and they all very well believed that animals might not come back, but they certainly had souls and feelings and spirits and that type of stuff. And I guess that's where my feelings like that come from. But anyway, I may take the camera up there. Whenever this little dog died, as I said, everybody in the church was okay with her burying the dog in her plot because she had purchased that plot and it was hers. And as a matter of fact, her son that had died several years earlier was also buried in that plot. And anyway, she just wanted the little dog buried there with him because it was like her family, just like Chico is with me. Chico is just like family to me, and I'm sure a lot of you have pets that you consider almost family. Well, I do consider Chico family. As I said, he's like a cousin, I guess. But anyway, all animals to me are. But I'll try to go up there and make a picture. This one particular man raised Cain about it, and they couldn't bury the dog in the plot with her, although she owned that plot, and I would think she could bury anything there she wanted. But they did bury the little dog at the side of the cemetery, pretty close to where she is buried. And I think I'll go up there tomorrow and try to video that just to show that to you here on Alabama Adventures. And I do hope you have enjoyed this Alabama adventure. I have some other dog ghost stories that I would like to do later on a video. And I guess with all that being said, we'll wind this one up tonight and close this video out. And I'll say hello to my granddaughter Madison, as I always do. And I'll tell you that the Alabama Bigfoot Society is run completely out of pocket. And if you are in a position to where you can and where you would like to make a donation to help us with our paranormal work down here, it would be very much appreciated. All you have to do is go to our website, alabamabigfootsociety.com, and on the front page you'll find a place to where you can make that donation. If you like this video, give us a like. If you like these stories and things like that, then I hope you would subscribe to the channel, because I hope to have some more coming soon. As a matter of fact, I am working on some more right now. But anyway, I guess with all that being said, I'll be looking for you next time on the next Alabama adventure, getting close to Bigfoot.